If you want proof, 2:35. Okay, right there.
Yeah.
If you
Yes, sir.
want proof, guys, if you want proof, Muhammad is a son of the devil, inspired by Satan to replace Jesus in the hearts of Muslims, because Satan turned him into another Jesus so that Muslims feel they don't need the real Jesus because they have Muhammad. Here's the proof. Get ready to be shocked. Get ready to be shocked, and we're done. Chapter 2, verses 35, 37 in the Quran. This is in my article. Here's the link. Lord willing, I'll put them all in the comments and pin it as a comment. Some of them are already in the description box. Watch this, guys. Get ready to be shocked. And we said, oh Muhammad, I'm sorry, oh Muhammad, dude, man. Lord Jesus, erase Muhammad from the earth and destroy his memory from our minds and our tongues and save Muslims in Jesus' name. And we said, O Adam, dwell thou and thy wife in the garden, and eat ye freely of the fruits thereof where you will. But come not nigh this tree. Do not get near this tree, lest ye become wrongdoers. But Satan caused them to deflect therefrom and expel them from the happy state in which they were. And we said, fall down, one of you a foe unto the other. There shall be for you on earth a habitation and provision for a time. Now watch this part, because now we're going to look at a tradition explaining the meaning of this part. Then Adam received from his Lord words of revelation, and he relented toward him. So Allah inspired Adam to recite words of forgiveness, which caused Allah to repent toward Adam. Now, sadly, the Darus Salam edition of Tafsir Ibn Kathir. Darus Salam is a Salafi publication. They translated in 10 volumes the Arabic of Tafsir Ibn Kathir into English, but in an abridged form. Abridged form means they omitted a lot of what is in the Arabic of Ibn Kathir, not simply weak narrations, but also statements that went against their Salafi Islam. Let me explain real quickly. We're going into meat. Bear with me, guys. Thank you for making this session a success. May the numbers of all these channels increase for the glory of Jesus. Okay, watch this and let me know you're getting it. In Salafi Islam, they do not believe that you can contact dead Muslims and ask them to pray for you, because in Islam they have their own form of communion of saints. It's called tawassul, where they seek wasila, a means of getting near to Allah. Shia and the Ashari and Maturidi Sunnis. Ashari Maturidi would be someone like Hamza Yusuf. Salafi is Asim al-Hakim. Salafis are Boko Haram. Salafis are ISIS, ICE. Salafis are Al-Qaeda. Salafis are Osama bin Laden. Salafis are the Shuyukh, Mashayikh of Saudi Arabia. Hamza Yusuf, Zayd Shakir, these are not Salafis. So they believe in what's called tawassul. Tawassul means seeking a means of getting near to Allah. Because they believe that, they believe you can ask dead Muslim prophets or companions or saints that are alive in Barzakh and ask them to pray for you. Ask them to help you. Salafis say this is idolatry, it's shirk. It's shirk. So they condemn it. It's akin to the Protestants who say to Catholics, Orthodox, Coptic Church, and Church of the East that you are committing idolatry by invoking dead believers. The Protestant position in Islam would be the Salafi position. The position of the Orthodox and the Catholic and the Church of the East and the Coptic would be akin to the Shia, or the Shia would be akin to this view, and the Ashari Maturidi that believe, no, you can invoke Muslim holy men and women, prophets like Muhammad and his companions, because though they are dead physically, they're still alive in Barzakh, and Allah allows them to hear you and then pray for you. So it's very similar, this debate. And Muhammad, obviously, his followers got this doctrine from the church historically. Okay, now with that said, in the Darus Salam edition of Ibn Kathir, this narration is omitted. You can't find it. Now, thankfully, there are different English translations of Ibn Kathir, some of which I have, but they're in boxes. So this particular version of Ibn Kathir is not the Darussalam edition. You can find this in Arabic if you read Arabic, or you get this particular English translation. And I hope you're with me, because now let's read. Here's where you're going to get disgusted. Prove to me Satan did not make Muhammad another Jesus to replace Jesus and deceive Muslims in looking to him instead of Jesus to keep them away from their only hope of salvation. Watch this. Al-Bayhaqi, a renowned hadith scholar, Muslim scholar. Al-Bayhaqi cited the following hadith in his book, Dalil and Nubuwa, the proofs of prophethood, the signs of prophethood. He recited this tradition. Narrated Umar ibn al-Khattab, the prophet said, when Adam committed the sin, here's the words that Allah inspired him with, by the way. When Adam committed the sin, he said to Allah, "O my Lord, I ask you with reference to Muhammad to forgive me." What? This is wasila, seeking means of nearness with Allah by some means, by some mediation, intermediary. I ask you with reference to Muhammad to forgive me. Allah said, "O Adam, how did you know about Muhammad? For I've not yet created him." Adam replied, "O my Lord, when you created me, I looked up and saw inscribed on the legs of the throne, on your throne, I saw written on your throne the words, there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. The Shahada written on the legs of the throne of Allah." Now watch what's going to happen. I knew that you do not attach your name. I knew you don't attach your name, but the name of the dearest of your creation. You don't add someone's name to you unless he's the one you love the most. So notice, Allah loves Muhammad more than anything in creation. Allah said to Adam, "You have spoken rightly, Adam. Muhammad is the dearest of my creation. I have forgiven you because you asked by Muhammad, and had it not been for him, I would not have created you." Allah would not have created the world unless it's for the sake of Muhammad. No Muhammad, no world. Not just Adam, the creation itself. Now, one Muslim scholar says this narration is sahih, sound. This hadith was narrated by Al-Hakim, who also classified it as sahih, authentic. Among the transmitters of this hadith is Abdurrahman ibn Zayd ibn Aslam al-Haythami. This hadith was reported by al-Dabarani, and in a chain of transmitters are people I do not know. Al-Hakim was therefore mistaken in classifying this hadith as sahih because he himself criticized Abdurrahman ibn Zayd bin Aslam in his book at Duwafa, meaning daif, weak hadith. So how can he state the authenticity of the hadith after he had criticized him? Now you have Muslims disagreeing. Al-Hakim said this narration is sahih, but according to a work of his, right, at Duwafa, daif, he questioned and criticized Abdurrahman ibn Zayd bin Aslam as not being completely reliable. But even da'if, don't forget, we went through this. Muslim scholars say da'if means it passed. It's weak, but it passed. So you're still stuck with, it's still good enough that they couldn't reject it. They included it as da'if, even though Al-Hakim elsewhere said it's sahih. But now let's look at another version. Scroll down to the other one, we're done. This is from Qadi Iyad in his Ash-Shifa. There you go. This one here. Guys, tell me Muhammad hasn't replaced Jesus due to Satan inspiring him to do so. Abu Muhammad al-Makki, Abu Layth al-Samarkandi, and others related that when Adam rebelled, he said, "Oh Allah, forgive me my error by the right of Muhammad." Allah said to him, "How do you know Muhammad?" He said, "I saw written in every place in the garden," not just on the throne, guys. Every place in the garden, everywhere, I saw written, there is no God but Allah, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So I knew that he was the most honored creation in your eyes. So Allah turned to him and forgave him. It is said that this is the interpretation of the words of Allah. Adam learned some words from his Lord. Now look at the other part. Another variant has that Adam said, another variant has that Adam said, when you created me, I lifted my gaze to your throne, and written on it was, there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So I knew there would be no one held in greater esteem by you than the one whose name you placed alongside your own name. Allah then revealed to him, by my might and majesty, he is the last of the prophets among your descendants. If it had not been for him, I would not have created you. It is said that Adam was given the kunya. Kunya means a patronym, that you're named after your son. Notice what Adam's kunya is. He's called Abu Muhammad. Allah gave Adam the name father of Muhammad. You are Abu Muhammad, father of Muhammad. Some people say that it was Abul Bashar, the father of mankind. Kadiyat Musa al-Yahsubi, right? Page 89. You caught it? Notice the tradition says Muhammad is the dearest, most beloved creature to Allah. Notice the tradition said Allah forgives people for the sake of Muhammad, even when Muhammad didn't exist. And the tradition says Adam was only created for the sake of Muhammad. If Muhammad wasn't going to be created, Adam wouldn't exist, meaning the creation wouldn't exist. You see how Muhammad is filled with the devil, inspired by Satan, to replace Jesus in the hearts of Muslims, because he now takes the place of Jesus in their minds and hearts, thereby making them believe, due to satanic influence, we don't need Jesus, we have Muhammad. Because the Bible says Jesus is the beloved of the Father and the Spirit. Jesus is the one whom the Father loves and adores as his son. And the Bible says the Father and the Spirit use Jesus to create the whole creation, all the heavens and earth, everything in them, including Muhammad and all Muslims, for Jesus, because Jesus is supreme over everything that exists. That's Mark 1:11. Write it down because I'm not going to read it. Mark 1:11. Mark 9:7. Write these down. Mark 1:11. Mark 9:7. John 3:35. John 3:35. John 5:20. John 17:24. Guys, write them down. John 3:35, 5:20, 17:24. And then Colossians 1, verses 13 to 18. End of story. Christ has died. Christ is risen. Christ will come again. He is forever alive because he is life. He is almighty, the almighty Son of the Father. His heart who became flesh, the eternal companion of the Spirit, our God, our Lord, our love, our life, our creator, maker, fashioner, our potter, our sustainer, our provider, our redeemer, our savior, our all in all, our everything, our very heart and life. We love you, Lord Jesus. Muhammad is dead on your feet, burning in hell, and you're alive, and we who love you will live forever. Save us from their threats. Save us from fear. Save us from Satan. Save us from our flesh. Save our children. Save our loved ones. Save my daughters for your glory, Lord Jesus. Never allow us to deny you, betray you, blaspheme your name, or shame you, Lord Jesus. Fill us with the Holy Spirit. Give us the grace for perfect self-control. Help me to get healthier and holier for your glory. Bless Adam and his family. Bless all these ministers and their ministries, and provide, Lord Jesus, until you take us home or you return. And we desire your return sooner than later. May we be clothed in your righteousness. So when you show up, we are not naked and ashamed. The Holy Spirit take over our mouths, our lives, to glorify you. We love you, Lord Jesus. You are worthy. You live. And Muhammad is dead and buried. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for using us to destroy this false prophet. Save Muslims from him and bring them to your feet in Jesus' name. And brother, what do you have to say?
Amen, amen, amen. Thank you. Takbir.
Al-Masihu Akbar.
Amen. Yeshua Akbarul Azim.
Hallelujah. Jesus is alive. He is Lord and Muhammad is dead.